What is up, everybody? It's Justin Gaming here. So ever since E3 2016, I made a promise that I would be covering the brand new Spider-Man game coming exclusively to the PS4 all the way up until its release. Now, in terms of that promise, I feel like I haven't really lived up to it because ever since I made that video, I haven't talked about the game ever since. And the main reason for that is simply because we haven't gotten any new news regarding the game. But I decided today, nonetheless, I'm going to be making a video about it anyways, but instead of giving you guys new news, I'm going to be actually making a wish list. Now, for this wish list, it might actually be quite different from other wish lists on YouTube because from what I've seen, all the other ones are basically talking about Spider-Man the character and what they want to see regarding like the villains or like the types of skins or the powers they want to see, everything like that. But my wish list is going to be different because it's going to be talking more about the actual game side. You'll see what I mean once I get into the video. But yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into the wish list. Starting us off with the story. Now, the story is something that's very essential to a Spider-Man game, especially because it is dealing with superhero. I feel like they can make a really good story. Now, Insomniac Games has told us that this won't be an origin story. It's actually going to be taking place 2 years after Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, sorry, has already become Spider-Man. So yeah, he definitely will have some experience, and this won't be really following any of the comics. This will be a new story for Spider-Man, and Insomniac Games is actually going to be working with Marvel to write this story. So I think that's pretty cool, because from what I've seen from Insomniac Games, their stories haven't always been the best. Especially games like Ratchet and Clank, it mainly more focused on the gameplay, and the story itself wasn't that great. So I feel like if they worked with Marvel, they can really nail down the story of this game, and the story will be a success. So in terms of the story, I want to see things like Peter Parker and basically his relationships with not only people in his life as Spider-Man, but also in his life as Peter Parker. Now, I'm not really sure if we're going to be getting that side of his story. I'm not sure if we're going to be getting much of the gameplay with Peter Parker, but yeah, I really hope we do because it just adds more depth to the character, I feel. And yeah, it would be really cool to see both sides of Peter Parker's life as Spider-Man and as Peter Parker, of course. So yeah, I feel like if they nail down the story, that will be a big plus and make the game a lot better. So yeah, the story is definitely something essential to make this game good. Next up is the presentation. I can be really short about this. The Insomniac games, their games have always looked relatively decent, like Ratchet and Clank and Sunset Overdrive. They haven't exactly looked the best compared to other AAA games out there, but of course, they still look really good. And judging from what we've seen so far, even though we haven't seen so much, I can say that the Spider-Man game definitely does look good right now. Especially when it comes out on the PS4 Pro as well. I think it will look even better with enhanced graphics. I think it's going to look really good. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about the presentation. So moving on to the gameplay, this is obviously probably the most important aspect of the game since we're talking about a superhero game. Basically, most of the gameplay is going to be about fighting and hand-to-hand combat or traversal around the city. So as Spider-Man, obviously he is a web slinger. He can swing across the city with his web swingers or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, that's going to be the main traversal part. We do know that the game is going to be an open world, which is really cool, which means the world's going to be really big. It is, of course, taking place in New York City, I believe. And yeah, Spider-Man's web slinging is going to be a good way to traverse across the city. I hope they can make that really smooth, maybe 60 frames per second. But I'm not sure about it right now because it is an open world game, and most open world games aren't really 60 frames per second. But yeah, if they were able to do that, I feel like the traversal will feel so smooth and amazing. Just going through the city with your web shooters, like flying, like going across the city, would be absolutely amazing. And yeah, I feel like the gameplay would be really good if they also had good hand-to-hand combat. So of course, other superhero games like the Batman Arkham trilogy from Rocksteady, or something like the Infamous series from Sucker Punch. Those are two really great examples of superhero games with great superhero combat. Like Batman Arkham Knight had great hand-to-hand combat, and something that the Infamous games from Sucker Punch had was great shooting with their powers, stuff like that. So I feel like if it had a great combination like that, then the gameplay would be really fun. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about gameplay. But I do want to talk about one more thing regarding the gameplay, and that's actually the open world itself. Now, the problems I have with open world games nowadays is that after you beat the main story, the open world itself can feel quite empty, and the reason for that is even though there are side missions, a lot of them can be repetitive and don't really have much value in playing them. For example, something that Infamous Second Son did was they had their story and then they also had the open world with tons of side quests that you can complete in each district. But the thing is that in each of these districts were the exact same repetitive side missions over and over again. So basically, once you finish the main story, you're basically just doing the same thing over and over again for the next maybe like 5 hours, just completing these same missions over and over again. So what I'm trying to say here is, since they are doing an open world, I want them to put more effort into the actual side missions and actually make them worth playing, and they make you want to play them. So yeah, that's what I want from the open world, and that kind of leads to my final topic, which is the overall value. Now, I kind of just talked about this already, but once again, the story has to be good, right? So the story, gameplay presentation combined with the main story, I just hope is really good and can give you a decent amount of time, maybe like 10 to 12 hours is what a regular single player game would be. And obviously I doubt there would ever be a multiplayer component in this type of game, but yeah, we don't need that from a Spider-Man game. But the thing is, after these 12 hours, there definitely has to be more, and I'm talking about the open world once again. So yeah, as I said earlier already, make missions and side quests that are worth playing, that aren't the repetitive same stuff that we're playing over and over again. So yeah, that, and obviously once again, to make this game really good. So once again, the Spider-Man game is coming out in probably either next year or maybe the year after that. Nonetheless, I'm really excited for it, and I'm going to be covering it once again all the way up until it's released. So if you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do that below. If not, I'd like to thank you a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.